So, good morning, Sir Alan, Sir Alf Allen. Welcome to the second episode.
Good morning, Sir Donald.
Of your life story. Yeah,
Right.
Thank you very much again for doing this and for participating in this life journey of individuals. It was great in the first episode, and I'm going to go straight back into time, talking about you and your siblings, and when you joined them up to now. Would you care to expand a little bit on, the life journey to date?
Yeah, so came over from Jamaica. I was one of five brothers and sisters. I wasn't the oldest and I wasn't the youngest, but I was the one that was chosen for whatever reason. Jean, my youngest sister, she was born here in 1963. Now, it's not that Jamaica was an easy time, right, when the parents left. And it's yeah. Anyway, right. We enjoyed the challenges. We played around a lot, right? And there was good relationships there. When I got over, it was a new world, new life. I did mention earlier about Mum and introduction to fog of the early 1960s, but it's only through this recording and answering the questions that Donald had actually raised that it became clear to me, and also being a parent now, right? I never got my head around why my other brothers and sisters saw me differently, right? And I've got 4 girls, and if they're all in Jamaica under the same circumstance, I think by default I'd have probably taken the youngest, right? Not the oldest, because the oldest has probably got better terms, or well, you have to make some assessment, and normally it's at the youngest that's the most vulnerable, right? But yeah, so I haven't got a clue what it was that my mum saw or dad saw, or both of them, whether they argued about it, flicked a coin, I don't know.
So interestingly then, is it a question that you think you'd ever pose to Mum or Dad?
No. Why should I?
No,
well, because I've got a reasonable relationship, like say, with Dad, and a relationship with her mum. So it's the relationship up and down, like say with the parents, to me was okay. The relationship sideways, like say with my the sisters, no issues, like say the sisters are sisters, right? And the boys just get on with them business, okay? Right? So the 3 of us, like say as boys, right, we have got on. I don't recollect any argy-bargies or anything like that. But it's only later on, well, I just went my own way.
Yes.
I went my own way because I started off, like say, a paper round at 13.
Okay.
And I just wanted, and I started, well, at the time you couldn't do it before you was 13, but I started when I was 12, right? And some of the other kids, they had bikes. Me and my brother, we had our legs.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah, so our challenge was to finish our paper round before them, and frequently we did, right? And we worked it out that the time it takes them to actually get off their bikes, right, park it, open a gate and go in and put the lettering lights and stuff like that, we'll just fly through, right? We're running all the time anyway. That's great fun, completely enjoy that. No, but it's I didn't grow up in Jamaica with any mental block about capacity or anything like that. What I can do, what I can't do, and all that kind of stuff. That's
Right.
purely an English kind of something in the air.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
You know, that because you've got a very good suntan, you can't do this and you can't do that. That's nonsense. Absolute garbage. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's not in my genetics.
Mhm.
So I just continued to push the boundaries in terms of growth. I'm still pushing the boundaries. Okay. That's it. So I left school at 15 before they raised the living the age to 16.
Right.
Right. And the first job I did, I was making ladies' dresses.
What?
I was working in a factory. Yeah, man, heavens.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Up Mayor Street, in a Hackney, past the town hall, about 800 yards on the left-hand side. There's a factory up there. Mum said to us, right, whatever you do, don't work in a factory. Make sure you don't work in a factory. The first job I did, working in a factory.
I'm intrigued about that, because how did you get that job and why?
From doing the paper round, right, you know, I got used to having money, right? So I was relatively independent. It's only £2 or £3 a week, whatever it was then. But to me, it was my independence. You know, I can buy my stuff and this is all that kind of stuff. Okay. So during the 6 weeks holiday, when I was 15, we were looking for jobs, and there was an advert in the Hackney Gazette. Right. I'll switch this thing off. Right. You know the Hackney Gazette. And yeah, the Hackney Gazette, and it was a factory, just a machinist or something like. So was it required? There was a couple of jobs. One was packing, right? So Glenroy and I, we went to school. We're still together, right, after all these years. We applied for the packing job. Glenroy got the packing job. Okay, right. So he kept his hands clean. I was there, like I said, at the same time, and I asked, you know, is there anything else, right? You know, the bloke said, can you operate a machine? Yeah, I know to operate a machine. His mum's got one. Right. Right. Don't watch my mum doing the things like that, etc. So what it's one of these machines that had some like between 16 and 24 needles.
Wow.
Right. And so most machines that you see have only just got one. So what it was at the time, there was this fashionable ladies' dress where you have there's elastication around the top half, boob tubes or something they call it, or something, right? You know,
something like that.
Right, whatever it was. So it took me a couple of days, like I said, whatever, to get familiar with that particular machine, and that's what I was doing. And I was on £17 a week, right? Which in those days
was a marked difference.
Mega money.
Yes.
Okay. So this is, huh?
I was saying that was quite a marked difference.
Yeah, 1973, and I'm on £17 a week. When I joined BT, I was on £11. It was equivalent of £11 a week.
Oh, so you went from 19 to 11?
Went from 17 down to 11 just to join BT.
I mean. Wow.
Yeah, you know, that's but it was a good move, right? Well, it kept Mum happy.
yes, she didn't want to work into a factory, right? Right. So you jumped into BT, which is where we finished last time. And do you want to carry?
Yeah, I went on. So I went into BT, and the last event finished with the one of my stages. in BT. And apologies that technology is not behaving itself as it should do. So this, when it's frozen, will make some sense, and it's actually back to front.
Okay,
right?
so I've got repair
don't worry
process
about
model initiative, reactive, proactive, and predictive. Okay.
Right, okay. So what it was that this thing here
Breakout.
was, yeah, it was divisions within BT.
Okay.
Okay.
Breakout
So they
repair
had three
process.
Yeah, so there was 3 organizations, 3 functions. The one in the middle had about somewhere between 50 or probably 100 people working in there, right? Yeah. The one, so I'll have to have a look because my screen's on. Yeah. So the 5% is a service center.
Okay.
Okay. And at the back is the network operations unit, and I want and that's as far as I'll go. So you can see the ratio of how things were, right, which is the top half, and the ideal was the bottom.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So I was responsible for the actual process for the members of the 500 club. It's mentioned partly in the previous presentation. So we actually managed to almost completely eradicate from a function perspective. We were able to completely eradicate, like, say, the middle team. But from an organizational perspective, they had to manage that accordingly.
Okay.
So we actually created, that's when I mentioned about the robotic ID, right, and all that kind of stuff, right? So it got to the stage where when a customer contacted BT that there was a problem, the service center knew exactly what the issue was before the call was actually answered.
Really?
So technology being technology, right? You know. So anyway, right, okay. So I'll speed through that. The long and short of it, it just completely revolutionized the actual business. I was mentioned in Sir Ian Valance's monthly report, right? And he's the CEO, like I say, of the business. And I was, what was I? Probably level 2 manager, right? You know, in a BT at the time, and it just caused havoc. It caused havoc. That's And I think when you hear them talking about digital at this moment in time, and the impact that it has on the economy, jobs, and all that kind of stuff, it is history. It is history, right? Because back then, the technology was there to actually do it, right? But it would just cause absolute havoc.
When you say cause havoc, anyway, what do you mean? Why would it cause havoc?
Look, if you've got a function, right? So from an organization, what it means is that you've got a team, you've got your operational processes, you've got a building, you've got the equipment, you've got the investment, right, etc. And a bit of technology has arrived that means that that function is no longer required.
Okay.
So you've got the human factor to address, right? If the business wants to press for greater return on investment and all that kind of stuff, it just goes ahead and does it. Okay. When I joined BT, there was 250,000 people working for them. It's called the General Post Office.
Okay.
Right, at the time. That was just the BT component was 250,000. That excludes, like I said, the post office. Okay? Right. Yeah. So I mentioned in the previous about the site was North Cheam, right, in South London, right,
Mm.
when when we was moving from analog to digital.
Mm.
And what occurred was that that analog unit got to the best performing unit in the whole of the UK as far as analog is concerned.
Okay.
We had built the functionality for the digital unit, and the same week that they topped the best performing in the UK, we switched it off.
Okay, I remember you saying that.
It's that kind of transitional component. Yeah, it's that kind of transitional component. So you've got individuals and organizations and functions and everything else doing a particular activity.
Mm.
Parallel with that is other activities to improve business. Okay. So it's a case of drip feeding when items are going to be introduced to the marketplace. So I've always been operating on that side, like say BT.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, so it's stuff that you don't, it's not in the public domain and all that kind of stuff, but because, I mean, I left BT 20 odd years ago now.
Wow,
right?
And that's an interesting point. So, you know,
yeah.
Your talk about the in and outs of BTs is very intriguing, really, for especially other people who don't have any idea about that sort of thing. But
absolutely.
20 years ago, you left, right? And that's an intriguing statement for me. So why did you leave? And what did you do?
Okay. So I moved out of the processes and systems into product management.
Okay.
So what occurred was I went for an interview. There's a vacancy in Japan.
In Japan?
In Japan. I passed the interview for the job in Japan, right? To go and work in Japan. And I was with my current wife, okay?
Yeah.
She was looking forward to it, right? You know, she's got excellent English, right? So that kind of stuff, and certification, and she's looking forward to teaching over there. By that time, I was now being mentored within BT. I had a mentor, okay?
Oh.
And he said to me, Alf, from your development perspective, right, Japan adds very little value to your career. Okay, right. Because the job was just basically doing more of what I was currently doing for BT.
Okay.
Right. And he said to me, right, you know, he's not saying don't go for the job, but he said, look, you know enough technical odds and ends, because I'd previously I represented BT internationally and done presentations in front of 30 different countries, you know, telcos, you know, from AT&T, Nippon, Deutsche Telekom, France Telecom, Italian Telecom, the Swedes, the Danes, you know, right, and all of that kind of stuff in 1978 when France won the World Cup. That meeting was in the week after the Cannes Film Festival. I was staying in the same kind of hotels that the stars were, right, wow. And all that kind of stuff. Anyway, right. Anyway, so he said to me, "Look, if to widen your reach and development, you should consider product management. Okay, you haven't got any challenges when it comes to processes and systems." Right, you know, that's your bread and butter, you know, right, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I then pitched it to Ruth, right, and my wife, and so I decided to move into product management. Now the issue there, and yes, it's a long way round the question that you raised about why I left BT, because I knew the systems in terms of the functionality at the level that comes out of the manufacturer. I was one of those sad case individuals, still am, right, that I really do read some of the small print, okay?
Okay.
Right, you know, so when I buy a hi-fi or anything like that, I know the small print. When I bought albums, I read about which musician was playing on it, who the producer was, who wrote the song, who collaborated, when was it released, which studio. Right? So
Oh gosh, God, that's sad. That is. most people don't bother with that. I'm telling you. So
I'm not interested, but I am.
But that's great. That's great.
Anyway,
I'm only kidding. Yeah.
Right. So what occurred was I introduced a solution to the marketplace, a product that that reduced. Well, first it sold. Sky bought £2 million worth of that solution.
Of your solution?
Gas bought of my solution. Okay. My concept, right, so etc. Right, because I knew what the functionality was, and it was just a case of, can you package it in a way that customer wants to buy it? Can you put in place the supporting processes, the training, right? You know, the warranty, the pricing, and the structure, all that kind of stuff. Did all of that, right? £2 million worth Sky bought. Okay, right now. The good and the bad thing about that was that the sales guy who didn't know anything about the product, you know, so I had to do all the presentations, like say, etc. Right? They got their bonus. They exceeded their bonus on that contract alone. The BT sent them and their family to Monaco for a week as a thank you. Okay, right? Guess what I got?
It wasn't £1 million.
No, you must be joking. I think I got something like the £2,000 bonus, like say for the year, like say in terms of performance, which was the top that was available, and a night out at the Grosvenor Park Hotel, Green Park, with roof. Right? Wow. Okay. I remember that it was £375 a night was the actual cost of the hotel, and the breakfast was £70. Right, you know. Anyway, right, you know, it's that kind of place. You know, so I'd got to a stage where, look, I was one that put that thing together. These guys, right, you know, the sales guys just laughed all the way to the bank.
Of course,
right, of course. Right, you know, yeah. So I was considering leaving a BT. I did try a few years earlier, but I was ring fenced, right? You know, and that's what occurred. So come in 1999, what occurred was that there was a downturn in the economy. BT did not hit its targets, so it sent out an email, broad email out. Anyone who's interested, like saying leaving the business, right? Just reply to the email, like say, etc. And I said, well, I know what that means. It's the financiers that's making the decisions, not the people who are operating the business. Right? And yes, there's a clause that it had to be signed off by your manager 2 levels up, like say whatever, right? So etc. So I put my hand up. This was September 1999, and within 4 weeks, 4 or 6 weeks, I was out.
Wow, so
after
that was redundancy.
Years. Yeah,
so redundancy.
Right? Yeah, and so I've got the redundancy package and stuff like that out, right? And they're completely out anyway. So that's how I got out of BT, right? First job I applied for was a product manager for 3. Okay, they were called Hutchinson Telecom, like I say at the time, right? I think the 3-bit arrived a bit later.
So that's a mobile service 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So the product manager, I failed the interview because the bloke said to me, "I'm too qualified."
What?
Right? Thinking, what the? Right? It's £50,000 a year, right? In 1999. Wow. And I'm too qualified for it, right? You know, so I'm thinking, which part of my brain do you want me to switch off? Oh my gosh. Anyway, right, you know, so trying to relate job descriptions and titles in BT to the outside world is quite challenging. Okay. Oh my gosh. Anyway, one of the guys I was working with BT contacted me around the same time because I worked on a mobile, worked on what was BT Mobile that then became O2 rights and all that kind of stuff. So I've really got a checkered, I've got an interesting past on a technology. So I got a job working as a product manager in Berkeley Square in Mayfair. And it was the business. So this is 2000 now, right? And what occurred was that this is the crash of 2000. The company had signed a contract with BT that was worth £250 million, 250 million. Okay. Wow. And you had the standard telephone, right? And we had the solution, Philips, and the name of the other company came out of Massachusetts Institute of Technology, were way ahead of the game with speech technology in terms of speech to text and text to speech. So the task was to produce or to develop a device, would you believe, right? So that you get rid of the mobile phone. No, you get rid of the fixed phone as you know it, as something that you got to press button to, and you just talk to it. Okay, right? Yeah. And you could design whatever shape, like if you wanted, if you want your fixed phone to be a bear, a teddy, or right, or anything, right, you know, a key, right, like say, etc., right, and you just talk to the device, okay, right. So, and one was entitled to a share or whatever the incentive was, right? So it was reasonably attractive, right? So at the end of the year, right, there was a company called Atlantic Telecom. They were worth £2 billion at the start of the year. At the end of the year, they were worth 250 million. Oh, right. That was the size of the downturn. Okay, and I said to myself, well, look, you've gone to BT, Cable and Wireless and Co, and they've signed up to this project. Okay, and they're committed to 250 million. If I was BT and someone says to me, here is a business proposition, 250 million, it's speculative, it's good, it stands out and everything else, right? But you could also buy Atlantic Telecom, right, that was previously worth £2 billion, it's now worth 250 million. It's got existing customers, it's got revenue, right, so everything else. Which one are you going to choose? Yes. Right, right, you know, so to me, it was a straight no-brainer. I just said, thank you very much. Syntonica was the name of the business. Okay. And Nuance was the name of the company that came out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and they still are. The engine, the core engine for speech technology as we know it now. So flipping forward the 20 years, what you now know as the Amazon, whatever that device is, you know, that you actually just speak to, right? You know, to actually switch on the light and to operate your TV. Like
yes. I know what you mean. Yeah. Play the music for me and do this.
Well, whatever that device is called, right. That project was what we were doing in 1999. That's what that £250 million project, £250 million project, like I said, was all about. It's the same thing. Wow. It's the same thing. It's just the timing was unfortunate.
Yes, like many things in life, timing is everything.
Yeah, right time, right place is all that matters.
Yeah.
Right, maybe a great product, which it was. Wrong time, wrong place.
Wow.
That's it. Yeah.
Amazing.
Anyway, so that's that. So I'd left BT. That was the first job. Then I joined Aviva, right? And things just escalated from there. Aviva, it was because of computer telephony integration, and that was quite an interesting project.
Okay.
So it was during the merger of General Accident, Norwich Union, and Commercial Union. Those three companies came together, right? And that's what formed Aviva. Behind the scene, yeah, right. Behind the scenes, they needed to ensure that the customer experience between those three entities migrating onto one platform was consistent and seamless. And I was one of the cogs, the missing cogs, that wasn't there in their plans, right?
Right.
So the job was London and the Southeast, and about about 6 weeks or so before I was about to start, they then said that you had to be within 30 minutes of Norwich, because they've changed the elements of the job description. So it's now an operational position as opposed to what it was previously, right? It could still be done in London as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
but they provided it was a compulsory transfer or move, it is a redeployment. Like they paid for the move from London to Norwich, and also it was something like a £5,000 bonus, right, to cover any inconvenience, like so for buying stuff, right, you know, kitting out the house and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So the missus had a good time, you know. She was phoning up the house, should I get this? And I said, and should it be this color or that color? Forget about it, just get both. Yeah, because it had to be paid, the money had to be spent before the 31st of March, right, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, anyway.
So you actually relocated?
So that's how that then, yeah.
Wow.
Straight from London, straight into Norwich, right, you know, and yeah, that was interesting in terms of relationships, right, some of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was quite an interesting time. It was there that our tot was born. Our first tot was born, who's now at uni, right, you know, and yeah, this is where I did make a slip up. This is how I ended up in Northern Ireland, okay?
Right.
So we're only up there for about 2 years. So for the first year, I was living in hotels and all that kind of stuff up there. And so what occurred was Jesse was born, and I thought, because it was less than 3 years that we actually owned a property up there, right? That when you consider the estate agent fees for both selling and buying, and the solicitor's fees and all that kind of stuff, one's only been there for a short while, right? You know, is it likely that the value of the house has actually gone up to a reasonable degree that allows you to make it profitable? I said, well, the driver to this, I'd taken Ruth to Jamaica. She was happy there, right? You know, and I've been to Northern Ireland. We got married there in 1998, a year after we met. That in itself is another story, because I proposed to her within.
Sorry, interrupting you here.
Hold on a sec. I proposed to her within 4 weeks of meeting her.
Really?
And I hadn't seen her from Adam. 4 weeks. Right, that's another story. But anyway,
yes, okay.
And this is 20 odd years later, and I do not believe in love at first sight. Right, it was just absolute foolishness, right? Anyway, but it worked. Heavens, you know, for whatever reason, and I'm not advocating it, right? Because I said to my daughter, anyhow you bring anyone to me, right? And you said even when I just met them, no, absolutely no.
All right.
Oh my God. Well, anyway, so when Jessie was born, right? You know, the like most mothers, the first thing they're thinking about is their mummy, right? You know, so we had spoken about, like, say, where to retire. Could I retire in Northern Ireland? Absolutely. Can I retire in Jamaica? Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
So she then said, well, why not move to Northern Ireland? And I said, well, if the finances stack up, yes, but the brain had already done the numbers, I thought. Right. You know, because we still had the property in London. And I thought that one would have been profitable. Not the one in Norwich would not be profitable, and therefore the likelihood of us having the capital to actually go to Northern Ireland was slim. Right. So that's why I said that. So when we got the numbers through, my equation was poor. Right. It was more attractive, and hence we just moved to Northern Ireland.
So did you maintain? Did you keep the property in Norwich? Did you keep the property in Norwich?
We sold the property in Norwich. We sold the property in Norwich, and we sold the property in London, and we moved to Northern Ireland.
Okay, I get that. Yeah.
And that was 2003, so 18 years ago now.
Wow.
And look, I came across willing to be a postman, like, you know, because if you haven't got London kind of mortgages, right, and that most of your mortgage, like, say, is actually paid off, right, right, you know, then your reason for working and who works and all that kind of stuff, right, you know, that's how stuff like that operates, you know. But no, my brain was far too active, and after a year, I started working in the rotomolding industry.
And what? In a way?
The rotomolding industry. Right. Right. So what that is that, you know, how plastics, how things, how this thing's made, like, say, by a plastic mold, right? Okay. Right. Well, it's a similar process for metals. Okay. One of Ruth's friends came out of uni, and he was a bit of a Clive Sinclair, in as much as great in terms of the product, right? You know, the creation of something new, but the appreciation of what was required to actually the pricing, the packaging, like, etc. The product management stuff I learned at BT. Right. Yes. Strong point. Right. So I plugged that hole for him. Right. You know, and he then tours the world in making the manufacturing process of metals far more efficient. Right. You know, and so that's what that was all about. So after that, the brain just kept on. So I then worked for Vodafone Ireland in Dublin, and from there.
In Dublin.
In Dublin, I was, they used to call me, excuse me, the man from Armagh.
Yes.
Because you had this odd scenario. Dublin is like a smaller version of London. Okay, everyone wanted to work there. Okay, so Dublin had the M50 around it, which is a bit similar to the M25 of London.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So where I live, like, say, in Armagh, I could take a train, get into the office in Dublin before 9 o'clock, reliably, every day. Okay. And the time it took me to actually, that journey, it was a shorter journey in time from somebody living on the outskirts of Dublin, because the traffic right around the M50, it took them longer to get in terms of time than me come
yes.
in 90 miles away. 90 miles away. Right, you know. Yeah. Anyway, so they called me like, say, the man from Armagh, right? You know, they couldn't believe it. But it's that mentality, because working in London, time is more important than distance.
Yes.
Right, because if you're in London, if you lived on the edge of say Rainham, right, you know, which is near the end of the Circle Line, not the Circle Line, the Central Line. Okay,
Yes.
if you're going from the end of the Central Line to work in Central London, that journey time is significant.
Yes.
And even worse, if you're going from the west of London to the east of London to work,
yes,
that's hell. Okay, because you know it's going to be a good 2 hours or so.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Unless you're traveling at 6 in the morning, lights and all that kind of stuff. And if you're going by public transport, yeah, you don't even think about it. Yes. But to the folks in Dublin, the actual thought that someone could live that far away,
yes,
right, is crazy.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. So that's what that was all about. So I then moved into consulting. This was an interesting case. I saw a job advertised, 2 jobs. One was for a call center specialist, and the other was to manage a tender. I got both jobs.
Oh my goodness!
Right. Unfortunately, I didn't get twice the pay.
Oh, okay.
But the pay from one was more than sufficient. It was equivalent to a year's salary.
Really?
Like, you know, the contract was only 3 months or so, right? It should have been 3 months, right?
And that was equivalent to a year's salary?
Yeah. Okay. Right. Wow. Here in Northern Ireland. Okay. Right. You know, the contract lasted 9 months. And I delivered both, and that was a springboard for the management consulting, because the company that recruited me, a man called Ron Newman, who's no longer with us, he came up after 3 months, right, and said to me, "You're obviously good at what you do." Right? What kind of job do you want to do afterwards, right, after this one's finished? And I said to him, nothing like this one. Right? Because when Jesse was 2 years old and just about getting to speak, I was nowhere to be found.
Oh, I see, because you were that busy working.
Yeah, nowhere to be found. I was in England 5 days a week, even though the contract was that you can work from home, like etc. But the management style and concept within industry at that moment in time is a lot of managers judge by sight. Right. They want to see. They're paying that kind of money. They're entitled to see what they're paying for.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. Yes, and evidence that you're actually delivering, and that it's you that's actually delivering.
Okay.
Right?
I get it. I get it. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You know, so it really didn't matter. Right. You know, so so yeah, that was quite an interesting time. So yeah, so from there, I tried to ensure that the contracts were shorter, right? And so with a Dixon's, well, now this is where I have to be cautious, right?
Yes.
Because I'm still active in that space to a certain degree, okay? Yeah. Right, you know, so I significantly reduced the corporate bills. Okay, and I've been significantly reducing corporate bills since.
Okay.
Yeah, the largest savings that I've saved an organization over and above what I was committed to actually delivering. This was just a pull-through benefit, was over 20-odd million pounds.
Really?
Over 20-odd million pounds.
That's serious money.
Yeah, and it's that's all I can say about that. Anyway.
Yeah. What
so that's me.
Yeah. Wow. So you still active now, doing your own concern?
I'm active now.
doing your own concern? Is it?
Two things. One is cloud solutions, right? There's a couple of things that look, it's information at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So exactly the same thing when I mentioned about the robotic ID and the way the automation back in 1997, that stuff which I showed you on the screen was actually the 21st of August, 1997.
Oh.
That was my last presentation on that, right?
Wow.
Now, one of the data that you may not have been able to read was that it was the acknowledgement that most organizations are reactive. You build an organization, it doesn't matter whether they're manufacturing, like and all that kind of stuff, anything in industry, is almost structured to be reacting. You're reacting to the market needs. Of demand by the customers. One particular product line has gone unfashionable. You need something else gearing up to actually replace it annually or whatever kind of period.
Yes.
So you're then able, even within that kind of process, you're essentially a reactive business.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, because of one of the projects, like say with BT, that had a lot of data, it was just data, as they thought it was just dump data, right? But to me, it was data, okay? So from the repair perspective, I knew that every little switching point in the network is generating data, it's supervision data. Okay? But it was only kept for a certain time frame or then trashed because it had no value.
Right.
So I thought, well, look, if there's a flood in Bristol, for example, right, or there is a incident in Norwich or Leicester, right, and if you've got that kind of data and you can annualize it or just dump it into some database, right, you're going to get a pattern, and you can actually see that every year Northumberland has a reasonable amount of rain.
Okay.
Particular lines go out, right, and service gets interrupted. So this palaver, today's palaver with the power outage is garbage. It's grade 1 garbage, right? Because they have the data.
Okay.
You're managing the network. You know where your weak points are. You know the history of every time that there's an incident, every time a customer actually says, I'm phoning up because my power is down, or I'm phoning up because my phone line doesn't work. You've got that data.
That's a serious amount of data, that is.
Absolutely. If that data is then pumped into a database, you get the trend. You know where the weak points are, right? So because the organization's only been, the power industry is only operating on a reactive basis, right? Typically, with the data, you become proactive, right? So what that means is that you can put the equations together regarding likelihood of there being a power outage in postcode X, postcode Y, postcode Z, based on all the historical data. I've never had an incident. No customer's ever complained from that site for the last 10 or 15 years. Therefore, the likelihood of an outage is slim. Right? If you've got the data set, oh, that area, every 2 or 3 years, something, there's customer, that means that you should be able to put in a program of reactive, of proactive, upgrading elements of that network, like I say, etc. Okay, and then, so what happened? That initiative, like I said, with BT, we estimated that it was only going to be, like say, about 10% improvement in the business if you put that thing into practice, right?
Okay.
It was way above that.
Really?
It was way above that. Yeah. When it comes down to predictive, we had no clues. Now, predictive being that you know, based on algorithms and processing, like say, the data. So you then restructure the business so that you've got the organization, the system, the process, and the people doing the predictive. as opposed to the organization completely structured and all it's doing is reactive. That is the difference between the nonsense that the power industry is on about like this moment in time and what the end user experience is, right? And to think, right, you know, that you get to this, look, I here in Northern Ireland, I live on a hill, okay, right? And I got to the stage where at times there was a power incident every month, right? Okay, right, you know, and I just interpret it as a consequence of living outside the village,
right?
Stuff, okay, simple answer to that is you get you get yourself a generator.
Okay.
Right, so that like when the things goes down, it mitigates like the scenario, right? And it's difficult to believe in 2021 you've got a huge industry with the regulator, right, and all that money going off to shareholders, right, when all they have to do is just some basic common sense processes. Anyway, sorry about that. That's just my right, okay. Anyway, so that's me. What else?
Gosh! I tell you what, this has been quite a journey in terms of, you know, looking at yourself as an ordinary individual, so to speak, from age 6 and to where you are now. It's such a different journey to the ordinary person.
Yeah, because look, I mean, I did not get a pair of shoes until I was about 2 or 3 years old.
Well,
you see, the oddity is that on the TV, when they talk about trying to raise funds for different overseas campaigns, all that kind of stuff, to me, it's my life, right? I am not an ivory tower individual, right? That they're pitching a image of a young 3 or 4 year old walking around, like say, without shoes, like saying, and food is not quite as abundant, like as it should be. In Jamaica, he's never well. In Jamaica, yes, you could have been hungry. Look, the definition, like say, of poverty, right? You know, in my speak, right? Very rarely do you hear of people in Jamaica complaining about death because of starvation.
Yeah, because they're living off the fat of the land.
Yeah, whether you just go down and you just brock a piece of key and right, out in the village and all that kind of stuff. Poverty to them is Nike, Reebok, TV, mobile phone, right? iPad. That's poverty. Poverty is not food or clothes. Yeah. But anyway,
very interesting. Also very interesting. You mentioned you got 4 daughters. Did you say?
Yeah. Well, first one, she's head of maths in a school in central London, in London, North London.
Head of maths, take after her daddy then.
Say again?
Takes after her daddy then, the old mathematical brain.
Yeah. Well, no, I say she takes more from her mum than me. Because Eve, my first wife, she, I think, she did maths at university. Right. I always got credits and distinctions in maths for every exam I took from a whatever, right? Even in City and Guilds, it was always credits or distinctions, right? So when it comes to maths,
So anyway, the brains come from both of you then.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's exactly the same with my second wife, right? You know, she's exceptionally sharp, right? You know,
and so the other girls are they all sort of grown up now, or they?
No, the youngest is 14, right? You know, then the other one's 16, and well, she'll be 16 next month. And Jessie is currently 18, and she's at Harriet Watts in Edinburgh. She's actuarial science, right?
Wow.
You know, yeah, she loved maths. Corinne, right, my first daughter, she was at a stage where maths was like colors to her,
Really?
right? She would read books on maths, not
Wow.
my zone, right?
Wow.
Maths, if it relates to something physical that I can solve a problem or something, that's my comfort zone.
Right.
Maths, when it comes to some of the theories, yes, I did reasonably well at school, all that kind of stuff, right? You know, but yeah, it needs to have a relative component,
I
right?
get that.
You know, for my brain to come alive. Yeah,
I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
So have you got any boys?
no,
Okay,
no,
4 girls. Blessing, eh?
all girls. Yeah, part in some respect, my saving grace,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because well, yeah, yeah. If it was, if I had a boy, that would have. I think it'd have kept me more on my, more on my toes. That would have been challenging.
Yeah. Because when we covered your life story about your growth and watching your daddy doing certain things, especially with a screwdriver, etc., etc. I guess
Yeah.
a boy would be probably a bit more practical and taking you down a road that maybe.
Well, havoc, because I did have I had a stint with my dad from when I was 13 that he did not speak to me for 10 years.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. 10 years.
Wow.
Dad refused to speak to me.
Did you ever get a sort of a smacking from dad? Because I know what it's like back in the day with some.
Yeah, I told you the chat that we had afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Because the time when I blew the house fuse.
Yes, I remember that.
Right,
We were talking about that offline.
Right?
Offline.
So by the time I was 14, 15, I hadn't left school yet. I hadn't left school yet. From my paper round, right? One, I wanted my own hi-fi system. 2, I wanted my own guitar. I wanted my guitar. 3, I wanted my camera. Right. So these were my first 3 loves.
Right.
Okay. Right. Now, Dad always said to us, the only thing that you should ever buy via hire purchase is your house.
Okay.
Right? Don't buy anything by hire purchase. Okay.
Yeah.
But my brain had an interesting challenge regarding the statement, right? Because Dad had a car.
Okay.
Right. And I'm thinking, well, what's the possibility of Dad actually buying that car for cash?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought probably slim.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to him about it. Okay.
Right.
But far more provocative was it was Thatcher was in power.
Yes.
The interest rate had gone into the 20% for HP for hire purchase.
Yeah.
So I totaled up that everything that I needed cost £100.
Everything that you needed, all those.
Yeah, but I was doing a paper round, and a paper round was only given £2 or £3 a week.
Okay.
Right. So I said to Dad, right, interest rate is around 20 odd %. So if I saved up my £100, right, and it so what I'm after costs £100 now, and I haven't got the money for it. By the end of the year, that's not going to, the same items aren't going to cost £100. It's going to cost £125.
Yes.
Okay. So if I could borrow some money, right, that allowed me, because it was cheaper than hire purchase, to actually buy the thing, right?
Oh, yes.
And Dad said no.
Oh.
Right. And I joined the church. I was at the church at the time, and there was a few fathers in the church. I used to help, like I said, the Sunday school. I was teaching in the Sunday school and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But anyway, from an early age. And I said to the supervisor who I got on well with, because I used to help picking up the kids for the Sunday school, right, and all this kind of thing.
Yes.
And I said to him, is there any chance that you could help me get my guitar? Right?
Yeah.
And to sign the hire purchase agreement.
Oh.
And,
Oh my God.
and the man said yes.
Wow. Did he not query, why didn't you ask your father?
I told him all of that.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Anyway, right. You know, so George Brown, like, you know, great friend, right? You know, helped me a lot. He's no longer with us, right? So anyway, when Dad found out, he hit the roof.
Can't imagine.
Dad said, "You think you are, man?"
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was, yeah, my word, yeah.
So is that where the sort of the
That's when the split, yeah. 10 years,
Wow.
man, 10 years.
Oh my
Not a
God.
word. Living in the same house, you know.
Oh my God. You know, because how old were you then?
14.
So right up until, oh my God, that's mega.
It was a maximum. I couldn't have been, yeah, because I was doing the paper round, right, you know, and I think we got to the stage where during the 6 weeks holiday, sometimes you could actually get the jobs working for, you know, the supermarkets, right, and all that kind of stuff, right, you know. So I got used to elements of independence and saving money, because what have I got to spend money on, right? You know, because if I'm getting money coming in, you know, yeah. Anyway, so that was that. But to be fair, it took, wow, gosh, it took years, absolute years. It's only we only got it sorted out, I think it was probably like 30 years later.
Wow.
Years.
Wow. So interestingly then,
yeah,
the experience of your childhood, you know, how's that impacted on your life now with you and your children? You know, have you learned much from that in terms of?
Yeah, it's independence. I'll tell you a funny thing. A minister, Stevens, came to Clapton Church where I used to go, and he was at the end of his ministry, right, at a time, right, etc. And he preached a sermon. I couldn't remember anything else about what the man said, but he said that the land was calling him. I hadn't been back to Jamaica.
Okay.
I left in '63, and I hadn't been back to Jamaica.
That's quite a gap there in between, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm someone that looks forward. Again, look, leave.
Yeah.
The past is the past. Leave it alone. Right. Yeah. So the focus light says right in front of me. So he said, right, you know, that the land was calling him, right, you know, which I couldn't relate to anyway. So when I first went to Jamaica after I came back, I think it was 95. Yeah, it's 95. And when I got there, now this is something I've never heard. Then again, I may not have listened to the right material or read people actually talk about it, because not to the same degree, but this is what I experienced. Look, when you're someone of a quality suntan,
yes,
right, which is how I describe myself on the phone, you see, because when they hear the voice,
yes,
they can't relate to the suntan.
Yes. I understand. Yeah. Right. I do understand. Yeah.
Right. So I'm down in Jamaica, and even from the first getting off the plane, there was either something in the air. It was as if I was coming home. And really? For the life of me, I could look. You look. So I'm at Montego Bay Airport, right? And I haven't even reached a security yet. So need to go to the toilet. And went into the toilet, right? A woman comes in after me.
Oh, it's a men's toilet.
Men's toilet, woman comes in after me. And I said, I think you're in the wrong place. And she said to me, you want me to wet myself?
Wow. Wow.
Now, yes, that was a great bit of comedy, right? But it was a phenomenal introduction into the practicality.
Yes.
Right? Because you couldn't see that happening in England. It wouldn't happen, would it?
No, they'd rather wet themselves.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, so that kind of frank, to the point,
Yes.
solutions for challenges, right, is actually there within their genes, right? Anyway, and also my genes, so I remember because I went down there, the first time that I went down there by myself was actually 97. Still working for BT at the time. And a friend of mine, Frank, is a surname likes to come back, working in the operations center. And he knew more about Jamaica than I did.
Right.
And that got me to the core. Right? I'm born there, and this man, anyway. So by that time, so this is 97. So I was a divorced by then, and because I had an interesting role within BT, they'd resurrected me because of a couple of incidents. To take on a few projects that I hadn't touched for years, right? And the consequence of that was that I had 3 months annual leave to take when it comes to December.
Right.
So, excuse me. In December 1996, HR contacted me. You got 3 months leave left that you need to take before the 31st of March. Obviously, it can't be taken, right? Because it means me not actually turning up at work. Full stop.
Right.
Right. Right. So etc. So we arranged for. I was off every Monday and Friday from the start of January, and come March, I had to take something like about 2, but I still had work to do, right? So I had to take something like about 3 weeks off. I had 6 weeks off, but in order for that to work, I had to finish off some end of financial year components. So that then allowed me to take 3 weeks off in March. It's either 4 weeks in March and 2 weeks in April, or 3 and 3, whatever it was. So I was down there for 4 or 6 weeks, and I went down there with just jeans and t-shirts, right?
So you went to Jamaica for that time?
Just jeans and t-shirts. I couldn't give 2 hoots, right? I took the Lonely Planet guide, right, to Jamaica, and whether I had to go, what was it, just from place to place, right, staying one night at locations recommended in the Lonely Planet's guide, couldn't care. I just wanted to see the place anyway. But when I was down there, I met my dad had remarried, and I was there with my brother-in-law, right, like etc. And he was rather intrigued that all I came down there to do was to see the place, right? So took a car, got a hire car, and I think I drove 2 or 3 times around Jamaica.
Yeah. And the interest of that must have been,
Right.
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, because Mandeville, right, Jamaica is like a big country from mentality. That
Yes.
it's like, if you think of someone living in Coventry, for example, and they're comfortable, they know Coventry, they may then reach out to Birmingham, Manchester, all that kind of stuff. But the project to actually go and visit the whole place, right? They'd never heard of it, right? So, etc. Anyway, so and you know what Jamaica's like, right?
Yes, I do.
Right, okay. So I was staying in Mandeville, right? We got up something like 5 o'clock in the morning. We drove into Kingston, come out in south of Kingston, and by the time we'd got through, like, say, etc., and we're going round and we're coming up by Portland. So there's a place, even before we got there, I was seeing places like almost like paradise.
I'm
right?
telling you.
Right?
I know what you mean.
There's places you're driving and there's a waterfall coming out. Right? We pulled the car over, right? Wanted to, and Steve and the other characters going to come back. Shingles, right? Went up, right? And guys come back down with coconut, right? And they chop off the coconut and they just drink and eat, like, say, etc. Anyway, so we then drove round the coast. The target that we had to meet was Portland, and the reason why is because in the Lonely Planets Guide, there is a statement there from Errol Flynn.
Yes.
People.
Yes.
Errol Flynn described Portland as more beautiful than any woman he'd ever seen.
Because I believe he owned the place on Maid Island.
That is why.
I know. I've been to that place myself.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. So drove all the way up there, right? We spent time in Portland. Then we came out, followed the north coastline, right round to Ochi.
Yeah.
Right? So there was one instant. So the first time that we tried to go, we had to come back because we spent too much time, like, say, in Portland. And we came back coming through Kingston by Blue Mountain.
Yes.
Right, into Kingston. And there's a couple of incidents, right? Oh my gosh. Anyway, so there was a police incident, right, where we got stopped, right? And yes, we still had some coconut and stuff like that, like, say, in the boot. And my step sister, right, and her step brother was with me, right, so, etc. And when the police search thing, when the car pulled up, I can see a machine gun.
Really?
Facing me that way, right? We passed one behind me, right, like, so, etc. And there was something in the bush, whatever, like that, over there, right? So I'd learnt by then, right, that one Queen's English, like, good morning, good evening, officer. Can I help you? Nothing to hide. I'm not, like, etc. My Jennifer, my stepsister, like, say, whatever, was so fed up, like, at the time, right? When the police officer asked, "Is there anything in the boot?" like, say, anything. She said, "Yes, there's a dead dog and a man and a."
Wow.
So we had to get out of the car. Right, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I don't know. Anyway, so we parted, like, say, good company. I had to apologize for it, like, but he understood anyway. So we actually got back. So when we got back, Dad, they could not believe where we had gone.
Yes,
at all.
Listen. This is a different conversation altogether. I know what you're talking about. That experience of being away for a long time from
Yeah.
Jamaica and going back and seeing all of that, I
Going
know exactly what you're talking about because I did it.
The
Right.
shock. Look,
Yes,
there was a Chinese man that had a better Jamaican accent,
accent.
had a accent, right, so than me. Right, you know, I'm on the bus, right, and I see this.
I don't. Listen, we need to come to an end with this.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. And it's been absolutely a fantastic journey, and I fully understand, and I know so much more about what you've done as a journey, and thank you for that, for taking me through that. And I'm sure people will get a lot from this, and I hope you will share it with your whoever, siblings and family and whatever. It's been fantastic, right? Because this is what the Forgotten Generation is all about. Allowing people to actually just tell their story like you have. And I know you've got a lot more to tell, but you know, I just want to say thank you very much for what you've delivered, because you've certainly taken me on a journey, and I'm sure you'll take other people on a journey, especially the BT journey, because I learned a lot from
it. But what I should have also done is just give honor to God, give honor to the church. Right.
Indeed.
Without those kind of help and assistance and steer, rather than dead in the water.
And I get that, because that would be a separate conversation altogether in terms of our youth growing up in the church.
Absolutely.
And,
It's a different life.
And I'm hoping that some of our the people that we grew up with will see this recording and recollect and think they knew the Alfred until they listen to this.
Oh God.
So Alfred, I want to say thank you so much for this. Yeah. And we'll definitely stay in touch for many other reasons. And we catch up again. Yeah.
Yeah. God bless, and I'll send you the pictures. Will come through hopefully sometime today.
Okay. Thank you very kindly.
Yep. God bless. Cheers.
Bye-bye.